All right, on this next step, I made sure that all the harnesses are out of the way and accessible. For example, your bypass harness, your evap, actually this is the evap system harness, which is right there, is accessible. Make sure this is secured and out of the way, however you want it. Be kind to your harnesses. Remember, they're many years old. They will have little cracks. If yours is severe, I recommend you depin those connectors and use very thin shrink wrap and just individually support those when necessary. That is one recommendation I can make. So if you have an older car, make sure treat those cables gently, and so that the sheathing doesn't crack and you have exposed wires. I've been lucky on this car. Everything has been good. I only have one that's a little bit that may need attention, but I'll deal with that later. One thing about the engine bay I didn't mention on the other video was I kept all these OEM insulators. They're nice. There's to control some of the high frequency sound. I don't think people think they're insulating for temperature. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's just to help with some of the clicky noise and things like that. So I like putting those back in there. Plus it looks nice and finished. All right, just make sure everything is out of the way, and let's try and muscle this baby in. As you can see, I mean, if you're pretty healthy, you should be able to do this by yourself, but naturally you should get help. This is not a lightweight component at all, and I'm doing this without a front bumper installed, which makes it a little easier. So just a heads up. And we're talking about quite a few pounds here. Shipping weight, I think, is 70 pounds of the whole kit, so it's not lightweight. All right, so you put it in, as you can see, just drops on the seals. Everything lines up very good. In this area, I want to remind people that you should cover the holes going to the intakes. Make sure that you put a rag or something clean to keep tools and nuts and bolts falling into the engine ports. And something you should do as well, just make sure everything is clear and out of the way. I remember at one time, one of the installations we did, I think it was with Cameron, we had this sensor pinned behind the fuel line, so we couldn't get it out. We had to remove the blower to get the line out. So make sure, again, that all your harnesses are out of the way, because you're gonna regret it later. This hose, as plastic, make sure you keep it out of the way and up and where it belongs in the OEM location. So nothing was pinned. It was me being a little paranoid. So it was actually sitting on the O-rings, and they're rubbery, so he was holding it from moving. But everything is fine. Everything clears. I don't see any problems. Fuel lines are clear. Plenty of gap in there. No issues. So again, take the time to inspect things. It goes a long way. Yeah, it takes a couple of more minutes. I know. Who has 5 minutes? But it could be the best 5 minutes you spend working on something as important as this. All right, let me get the bolts mounted and go from there. Okay, so the kit comes with this 50mm flange bolts. Don't change it for Allen keys. Flanges help lock things in place. There's a reason for them, and they work great. So the way I like to do it, I like to put the 3 bolts on the one end first. This is a very high tolerance. Everything being CNC gets a little, it's a 3-piece unit, and sometimes, there's a slight variation, and with a high tolerance of things, it can get a little tight. So I like to put those 3 first, not all the way, just the first 3 or 4 threads. Then I go ahead and put the other ones in. And it will take a little, finessing around just to get all the bolts to line up. You could try pushing too as well on the center. Since it's a single plate, it has a little bit of flex, that's it. And that usually helps bring it to space as well, to spot. So little tug and pull, and you can get all the bolts in there just fine. Most applications, I think this is just one of my first prototypes, so they were not as perfect, but the new ones are a lot easier to put in. But yeah, she's in. I'm gonna go ahead and get that put on. If you can tell, I like doing everything with simple tools. Yeah, there's a benefit of doing things with electric wrenches and so on, but there's also high risks of cross-threading things, which can make for a very fun project. So keep that in mind. Nothing wrong with taking a few minutes on your work, unless you're getting paid by the minute or by the hour. If you're efficient with it, go for it. You know what you're doing. But those new at this, take your time. No need to rush it. Plan these installs ahead of time. You know, don't try to rush your work, trying to meet an impossible deadline that can then make it an impossible build instead, because of something going extremely wrong. All right, so the torque specs are in the instructions. Put those in, lock them down, do another check on all your hoses, and once I do all my torquing here, we'll go ahead and start working with the harnesses. Now it's time to go ahead and mount the harnesses. I like to start with the harder stuff first, and I'm going to do this one right here for the rear sensor. You have to figure out what to do with the extra harnesses. I personally have not figured out what to do. I wish it was that some sort of cap or something was sold that you could use to you know, cap those so they don't stay exposed. I'm sure there is. If somebody knows, let me know, or let the group know in the messages of the group. And something really cool we're working on, this fitting, we have made this where it was a little destructive to put in, so we are working on getting it to be where you can just install it by reusing the OEM fitting. So this is going to change a little bit, just to allow the use of that. At this point, because there's big throttle bodies in here, it's going to force me to do something different. So I might have to extend this hose on the S4 to allow me to put this like so here, or let me see, maybe these guys rotate. Oh, they do. So let's see if I can get the other one to rotate. Watch it prove me wrong. Oh, I was able to. Yeah, cool. So yeah, that actually works. Nice. So I mean, it's not perfect, but use your creativity to put that in, and you know, do whatever you wish with it. So I still need to get creative with this. I don't like this. I am going to come back and do a little recap on what I will do with this situation here. I don't like to modify things as much as possible, but this one may just force me to do it. Let's see. It's a sensor. So if I could get you right there, like that, it will be perfect. So yeah, if you play with this, you can rotate it to a point where it just makes sense. All right, so on the S4 for this whole PCB system, what I figured out with it was to get this pipe routed this way, where, you know, I pivoted the fitting on the plastic sheet in there to be like this. This thing is not focusing perfectly, but there we go. So I routed it to the back of the throttle body, and it follows the OEM line or EM line, and that means you don't need to modify that line, especially being a fuel type hose. You want to keep things you know, high quality OEM type lines as much as possible, the correct class, not just some rubber hose or silicone at least. But that's the final assembly of that. Then that leaves this guy for the vacuum PCV system in there, and everything mounts like so. You don't need to clamp that, that's all vacuum based, but you could do a, you know, some sort of clamp, something lightweight, even if it's a zip tie in there, and that'll keep it in place if you're worried about it coming off for unknown reasons. But overall, this is where we are so far. All the lines routed perfectly. Still can do an intake through there just fine. And next is going to be the cores on the next segment. Okay, so quick recap on this whole bypass and PCV and evap system. So I had to route it, or should I say pivot it a few more times until I found a place or a route that I was happy with. So just observe, this is how I ended up with it. And that allowed this hose to clear the actuator enclosure, and allowed the harness to clear as well. And now everything is looking peachy. And excuse my blurriness, there we go. So I was able to install the hose there just fine. So now it looks like one full assembly. So, and again, I'm trying to not be destructive to the components of the car in case you have to put things back. That's the best way I was able to get that done, and nothing has been changed on the OEM components. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, if yours is a car that you like to do things perfect, and you want a specific way on routing things, definitely do that, because you could definitely make it look a lot cleaner if you want to just make a custom hose and have everything mounted in a way that you're satisfied for your visual looks that you want to, you know, get out of it. So all right, so we are so far. Now I'm about to go and install one of the cores, so you can see the process. Pretty easy. These are upgraded cores, first revision, a little different design than what's out there right now, so I get to test these first before we make them available to customers. They're larger, meaning higher density core, and once we find out if this makes a difference, then we'll make the proper announcements. I know some of you are going to notice, which is why I'm saying it, otherwise I probably would have stayed quiet, because then, as usual, people won't stop asking me questions about it. But for now, I don't have any answers on this. It's just something I'm testing first to make sure it works, and then if it's good, then we make an official announcement and, you know, answer any questions that people may have. So for the core, if you notice, I drop it in, and the first thing I do is install these bolts first. I don't want people, you know, when you install these, don't tighten the cores all the way first. You know, just put it in and that's it. Don't go all the way. They drop in. You want to put all the bolts on the top, not tighten at all, just loose, let the core be loose. And then you're gonna go ahead and put these bolts on. Do the center bolt first, then do the outer bolts. Pull the core over, but not fully tighten yet, so just enough to hold it in place. And then do this bolt, and what that's gonna do is center or square up this corner and the seals nicely, and then everything else, and you can go, once it's squared, then go ahead, tighten it up, and then go backwards that way. Okay, here we go. All right, and then that's it. So this thing. The one is done, and pretty much repeat the same process on the other one. I'll record it anyway on the next segment. Next is you're gonna put the I believe they're 12mm bolts. Again, there's other descriptions of this is in the instruction document, which I think we have that online now. So anyway, I'm gonna put all these guys in here. Just finger thread it first. There we go. That's good. Good to go. All right. So align, pull forward, tighten down. Actually, not even excessively. I almost forgot that. So just a little bit, just so that is pushing it down a little bit, and then you're going to do this guy right here again to square the assembly. It's don't have to be super perfect, but it's just something I like to do. I mean, just so that you don't have a bolt fighting more than it needs to in trying to pull the core down. So those guys are in. It's a simple tightening, and then torque to spec. Yep, all these guys are doing good. And don't do this. If something falls in there and you don't realize it, it could be a problem. So if you're worried about that, put tape on it, put a towel, anything, just to keep it out of the danger zone. I think that's all I'm gonna do for tonight. It's getting late. I want to get up a little early tomorrow, continue the installation with some sunlight. I will then go ahead and do the next core and hopefully make a bigger dent in the day tomorrow. All right, next day here. So I inserted this core, and I want to show people, if you needed to remove it for some reason, you take two small screwdrivers, pop them on one of these edges, not near each other like that, so it's in only one side. It's going to lift, but lift it, you know, at each corner or each side, and then that will give you a nice gap to put your fingers through and lift the core out of the way. Okay, so just thought I'd mention that. Next one. All right, let me go grab the rest of the bolts and we'll be back. All right, so got my rest of the bolts. Oh, most. All right, so got the core placed, got the bolts in place there. I already brought the core forward a little bit. Put this bolt down to bring it down a little bit so everything squares. Now I'm just putting the core fully forward, pressing to the seals. Got all the bolts pre-threaded in there. And don't go crazy doing these 3 bolts in the front, you know, very tight at the same time. Meaning, do one a little bit, do the next one a little bit, just kind of progressively tighten those. All right, so now we go ahead and do these. I like to thread them all the way down by hand first. If you have nice tools, I'm sure you can do it with a tool that's not, does not have too much torque or too much speed that can create a cross thread problem. Okay. these bolts are also protected from backing out. The top cover actually has studs in it that stick out. I'm gonna show you those in a minute here. Those studs prevent any accidental back out of these bolts. So if for some reason any heat cycles, vibration, or so on were to cause one of these bolts to come loose, they don't just come loose and sit floating in the manifold, you know, waiting to create damage. They actually get held in place by the top cover, so they'll never have an opportunity to back out and create damage to your supercharger setup. All right, that's how the cores are installed. That's what it looks like when it's finished. Let me get the top cover and show you what it looks like underneath. All right, the top cover, this is what it looks like. As you can see, hopefully this comes out okay. Let me go back a little bit in the zoom. There we go. So that's the top cover. I think most of us know what it looks like on the top already, but this studs right here hold those bolts in place, so they'll never be able to back out. All the other bolts sit right here on this edge, so they don't have an opportunity to back out. Even these two here have a little pocket to allow some room for the bolt heads, and that's it. And here is my 002 serial number supercharger kit. This pretty much lines up in there and gets bolted on. So it looks like I gotta move that hose a little bit more to clear that bypass assembly, but that's about it for the top section of the supercharger. I'm going to go ahead and get that solved and get it bolted down next. All right, so I have the core lined up here. I mean, the top cover lined up. The bypass, as you saw, just have it pre-assembled, pre-clipped, or you know, mount the harness ahead of time in there, so everything is nice and ready to go. That way, all you do is put the top cover in place and align it by hand to get your bolts in there, and that should be all that you do. These bolts, when you put them in, again, I keep repeating this, but try them by hand first. You only get one shot at doing it right, as far as, not one shot doing it right, but meaning it only takes one mistake to mess the threads up and find yourself in trouble. So get a few threads started in there. Don't bolt it down all the way. The reason why I'm saying that is the gasket is pressing against this top cover. You want to apply the pressure evenly across the top. So we're sort of going to do a sequence, kind of like you do with a head gasket. Well, the procedure is from center outwards. So we're going to pull the center ones on, tighten off, then slowly start tightening everything in a sequence where the cover goes down uniformly as much as possible. It's very rigid, but it's just good practice. And that also ensures that the plate doesn't get, you know, twisted or anything like that. Very unlikely case that can happen, but again, just good measure, good practice. All right, got those there, just enough to reach the surface. And you want to do this a few times as you go through, because again, you're compressing a very large rubber seal or silicone seal. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a few times to get it all clamped down. So these are all sequenced 35 to 50 millimeter, if I'm correct. In the interest of time, I'm doing this by eyes right now. But when you receive the bag, just make sure you lay them down and install them accordingly to their length. All right, so that's got to be the last 4 in the back, and I must have an extra one here or not. No, I don't. So those 2 go together. Those 2 are next, and you'll be able to tell because they'll look like a stair-step shape as they go along. So there's 4 go together, those 2 go together. All right, so then there's 2. You see, they line up perfectly. This last 4 are all the same length. And they get put in place. This is when you're like, oh my God, did I forget anything? This is actually very simple. The video sometimes makes it feel longer than this. But other than there being a lot of bolts, it's a very simple installation process. It's just, with CNC, there's just many components you have to align and put together. The goal is for 2025 to have this be a single unit at the bottom, so that you don't have to deal with this many bolts, and hopefully reduce costs a little bit, if at all possible. We'll see what the year brings. We're working on the design changes now, and I'm gonna go through a few prints, 3D prints, test fitment, check with a few factories to see what the cost will be, and go from there and hopefully make the announcement. And for those that didn't watch the video, you're not gonna hear about this because you skipped through. All right, so that's it for that. Just tight enough to hold it down. And now I need 1 more bag of bolts to start doing the perimeter. In the outer perimeter, there's a number of bolts that they're uniform in length. All the outer longer ones go on the outside. There are 4 short bolts in the front and 2 short ones in the back of the cover, but everything else is the same, so it's very hard to get it wrong. They only go one way. If you do it wrong, then it's just a matter of changing the bolt, putting it in the right place. This dust back to actually could be problematic. If you were to put the wrong bolt in there, you will likely, and if you force the issue, you will bend the plate, you will damage the blower, because it will cut right through where the seal is. And well, I don't think you damage the blower, but you damage the surface, and you may cause yourself a problem where you damage the lip area where the seal is, and you may damage the plate. You may bend it, out of square, and you may end up with a possible leak. I don't know, I've never gone through it, but just imagining that could happen, since you're dealing with an area that's fairly close to the seal. But it's hard to get it wrong. It's really hard. A little bit of observation goes a long way. You can see I'm doing all the long ones first. Alright, that should be all the long bolts. And let's go ahead and do all the short ones. This back bolts are a little tricky, so I like to put them on the tool and then just guide it down, so I don't drop it behind the engine bay. So I'm just doing that, putting my finger on it and carrying it down. Very straightforward. There's plenty of space to do that. All right, so I'm going to start putting all these guys down to the surface. I am not doing any tightening. I'm just putting them down. That's it, all the way to the bottom. So the next steps are closer to starting compression of the gasket. So I'm doing this. Hopefully I repeated a few times through the video moving forward. This supercharger is very large. And due to the core size we're using and we try to maximize every bit of space inside this engine bay. In doing that, we found that in the V8.5, the hood clearance is very, very tight. Only in this section on the front. We recommend, after talking with 034, that you upgrade to their performance solid mount. I forgot the name of the mount, but it's the one it's a billet mount. I actually run on their car with those mounts, and they're actually comfortable. They don't create excessive vibration on the car. I don't know if it was my excitement or what, but they didn't bother me. They didn't call my attention. The car had cameras mounted. It had a dash for data logging the racetrack time and so on, and none of it was vibrating out of control or was uncomfortable. You could talk inside the car. It was very nice. So we recommend that just in case, because the OEM mounts definitely don't do that, but the upgraded mounts, they can still fail, right? So if they fail, the engine is going to want to lift up, and it will lift up and touch the hood. So it has never happened, so we're just being cautious and providing that warning ahead of time so people are not surprised about it. All right, so I'm going through these bolts, and no specific sequence right now. All I'm doing is collapsing the gasket little bit, you know, little by little, just to start getting it compressed down. Did all of those, and now what happens is when I do the center, all of those bolts are going to be loose on the next round here. So these now I'm going to go a little tighter to start bringing the cover down. Now you can go a nice firm tightening on it. See, everything is lighter now as the cover starts going down. So when we do this, we're actually bringing up the blowers a slight bit to, you know, into its seal at the bottom as well. I do it one more time. Now backwards, just checking that every bolt stay tight. And this is a nice high temperature silicone type gasket, and so it compresses quite nicely and easily. Don't be alarmed if when you take it out it looks rather like a little flat. It's just soft, but it doesn't lose its seal. I find that gasket to be very, very, very durable. Very rarely do I have to replace it if I need to service the car. So don't be fooled by its being soft, by its softness, I should say. All right, so I'm gonna do that. Start going out. I'm gonna do the center over here, and now I'm actually compressing the gasket against the materials. So you could go, you know, now you can start torquing to spec. And that should be on the instructions on the page. So I'm gonna start here now. We have now done the entire center section. Okay. Now I'm gonna start from the center here. I don't think it matters a lot, but it's just good practice. All right, so the next thing we gotta do is the map sensors need to be installed. You don't just bolt this on. These are a different caliber MBQ map sensor by Bosch. and you need to repin the harness where you reverse. You know, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, then you got to go 4, 3, 2, 1 on both sides. Okay, on this section, I'm discussing the driver's side map sensor. We're revising this for the next batch of supercharger kits that I get ordered. And since that's happening, I didn't go over, you know, I don't want to go over this video and talk about something that's no longer valid. So pretty much we're rotating the other sensor. We're going to make it work with the OEM harness, and you will no longer need to extend the harness as we were doing on the prior versions. All right, these harnesses come with shields or covers. You have to remove the cover in order to swap the wires inside of it. It's a little lip you gotta lift, and that will allow the cover to open up. Not sure if that comes clear, but I believe on Audi C7 owner's video is there's a zoomed in version of this procedure. So that's the cover. Keep it handy because you can still use it if you wanted to. Yeah, if you, it will look cleaner. So depinning this thing, there are little lift clips in there or locks that you have to push down. Actually, no, on these I forget. You just pull the purple piece out, and that removes the locking. And I believe, can I just pull these? No, I can't. So you still have to release. You do that, but you still have to release the pins, if I recall correctly. Let me see if I'm right about that. Yeah, you gotta release them. So just a little lip in there. You push down, and if I was smart, I use a pinning tool for this. Let's see. They sell the pinning tools online. Don't know if this is the perfect one I need, but let me try it. Yeah, this is too big. So you could use even a. I don't have one small enough. I do not. So I'm gonna try and do this myself here. So I'm gonna push it down, pull it out. Oh yeah, there we go. So it doesn't take much. So yellow, and green. I'm trying to keep them in order so I don't get lost. Obviously, you want to make a note or a photo, and before you start pulling this down and then don't remember how they were before. So definitely do that. Yellow, green, yellow. And the last one, black. There we go. So pretty much what I'm gonna do is reverse these 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm holding them here. Yeah. Keep in mind your your position of that. So I'm gonna do this guy first. Then how can I do this? Let's see. I'm gonna do it this way. It looks more natural based on how the wires are positioned. And the next one, and then the last one. There we go. That feels more natural to the wires. I'm just trying not to stretch them or force them into position. That way they go in easy. All right, next thing is you should be able to just push these guys back in. When you push it in, you should hear a little click. If you push the clip too hard, you're not going to hear the click. So I recommend you pull that, pull those tabs up a little bit so that they have a lock. So, and that's your safety click in there. So that's it. That's she's been swapped or reversed, And in here, this cover, since now is removed, now you can choose to put it in a position that makes more sense for the location of the sensor. So you're gonna go down, there we go, this way. There we go. Clip it in, safety in, good to go. And she is done. Repeat the process on the other side. All right. So I got everything set up here. I just went over all the lines. We're still working on this map sensor design, so I didn't do a video on that. As we're looking to maintain the OEM harness, we were doing an extension, as I said on the previous video. All the kits that went out there so far will have an extension, but on the new for 2025 orders, we will be doing a different angle on that map sensor that I found today will work better. So a harness extension is not longer needed. It just keeps things very clean and simple. But this is what it looks like installed. The fuel line, nice and clean. Everything is set up really well. That beautiful vast AZ 85mm throttle body in place. Everything has its place. It's looking good. Next on my list is to go ahead and get the belt routed. So I'm going to leave the 190 2.8 blower pulley in there for now until I resolve the crank pulley situation. And so I want to do a higher PR ratio on this car, just to get it, no one has done a higher PR ratio. They've only done a base pulley setup, which is a rather low boost ratio, or at least RPM wise, it is a low ratio. And we get to see, how much more heat is generated. I also want to test against the better cores that are out there now. At least we think that they're better. And want to prove that first and then go from there. All right, the belt is installed. I think everybody knows how to install a belt, so I won't go over too much detail on that, but that's what it looks like. No different than the OEM setup.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.